So welcome back. It's November 27th. This is the end of the term talking about corporate cross-cultural communications. Today, we are honored to have two visiting professors, Yi Charin and Ha Xiang. You guys are going to be talking about compensation. So please take it from here and good luck teaching the world something new and interesting.
Can you see our screen?
Yes, I can.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Chaylin and Xiang, and today we'll give you an update on our research project, especially focusing on the methodology section under the title Changing Compensation Structure by Generational Shift, Suggestions for Samsung Electronics. This is a brief list of what we're going to talk about today. I'll begin by sharing the interview we had with Mr. Boni Nam, and Xiang will continue on with the case study regarding cultural differences and survey that we have conducted. Lastly, I will explain about Samsung Electronics compensation structure and tell you how we're going to produce a result from these data. So to learn about employee motivation based on a generational shift, from the perspective and practical experience of a professional, we had an interview with Mr. Boni Nam, one of the executives of Samsung Electronics in Korea, through the Samsung Electronics conference call on November 19th, 2020. He provided us with information regarding a survey that was conducted over a decade ago, which determined a ranking of which elements attracted employees the most when working for a company. Opportunity came in as number 1, compensation as number 2, and benefits as number 3. Employees back then were focusing on opportunity to grow, looking into their future. He also told us about a more recent survey of millennials. For them, compensation came in as number 1, work-life balance is number 2, and benefits as number 3. Compensation was of significant importance for high cost of education, resulting in school debt and high cost of living.
So based on the interview with Boni Nam, we had tried to figure out how does the culture affect millennials' values in different countries at first. And we found different characteristics of Korean and Swedish millennials through a case study. According to Scopa's articles, we found that there are distinct Korean and Swedish cultures that influence millennials. Park found that Korean millennials are highly dependent and have no strong opinions due to helicopter parenting. And she added that Korean millennials highly value relationship with coworkers and superiors, and they tend to just follow the rules or orders because of collectivism and authoritarianism. On the other hand, Shuei found that Swedish millennials highly value equality because of egalitarian principles rooted in Swedish society. In addition, since Sweden has feminine culture, Swedish millennials consider work-life balance the most, and compromises and negotiations are important to them. And then we conduct the survey. So based on the case study and CCC lecture, we carried out a survey with this form on the left side, targeting KAC students. 44 KAC students responded to this survey, and they consider work-life balance as the first priority, compensation as the second, and job security as the third. The interesting point in this survey is the third one. In the universal research, the third priority is usually benefit, but why job security is more important to Koreans? This can be explained by Hofstede Uncertainty Avoidance Index. South Korean UAI is 85, which is very high. Most Koreans feel uncomfortable or even threatened by the ambiguous or uncertain situation. And that's why they prefer jobs in the public sector as civil servants or teachers, that job security is much higher than other jobs.
Let's set the motivational and generational factors aside for a second and identify the structure of compensation in Samsung Electronics. It can be divided into two categories, which are individual contract salary and organizational incentive. As you can see from this slide, individual contract salary include elements that make up the fundamentals of the overall salary, while organizational incentive includes additional incentives that are given to employees for certain purposes. Considering the motivational and generational factors that we have discussed so far, Samsung Electronics' compensation structure seems to be outdated for millennials. So as for the result, we're going to combine these set of data that we have gathered and suggest Samsung Electronics with better compensation structure that will further motivate their young employees. This is the references that we used for today's presentation, and all the Scopus articles that are mentioned here in this slide have been already uploaded on our CCC research folder. So if you want to take a look at them, you can easily access them through our folder. Again, would you like to go back?
Well, I want you guys to be able to manage yourselves communicating. Do you think you are finished the communications? Let me give you a hint. You have said something that you know in your culture, in your mind, but do you think my mind or Julian's mind and every other classmate, do they understand the same thing that your mind is saying? Have you checked? Have you back translated? Have you reverse translated? Have you made sure your message is clear? Ask the classmates if they have comments, or could they summarize what your main point is?
Do you want me? So does anyone want to see our PPT again to have some comment or feedback on it? Because I kind of tested it out really quickly. Would you like to see it again?
You're communicating with Koreans.
No one.
Everybody's going to stay quiet.
If you
Yes.
can, then I think that it will be better to upload your PPT file and to receive some students' comments if they have.
It's actually already up there, and I have shared the link so that you can comment. Yeah, that link on the green
We're
box.
actually looking at two different things here. Not that. So this is our class file. Inside the class file, Icharin and Xiangha already shared their link to many things, and it looks like this. They have their research project PPT, plus they have some of the other details here. This is your other files. This is your file, right? But
Yes.
you haven't talked about that. Is it because you already have enough points? You don't care for more points?
We wouldn't mind to share those, but we aren't actually quite. We're still in the process of filling them out. So, would you like to see them?
You're being a perfectionist, and a perfectionist, some people appreciate it, but usually you can't keep everybody happy. And if you share it while you're developing it, you can guarantee that the message is understood perfectly. If you don't check the information is understood and appreciated, what that means with corporate cross-cultural communications, if you don't back translate the details, you may develop something and put a lot of work into it, and the other people don't appreciate it. They're saying, oh, you forgot about this huge part, or you did something wrong. So start sharing it now and make sure you're going in the right path. Check other people understand and agree with your direction. Do you want me to open this for you since it's already here? What would you like to see? The other references? Because in your PPT, you show only a 4 references. Hong Min, what kind of comment do you have for these ladies that have 4? All you don't need to look at anything, just you hear this research project has 4 references, period. Just that. How many do each of you need?
5.
Good guess. Well, yeah, sort of. A minimum of 5 each if there's 2 in your group, which means each project must have a minimum of at least 10 Scopus journal article references.
Dr. Watts, we want to point out that this presentation only contains the methodology part. So for the methodology, we only have 4 Scopus articles, but overall we have 11 in total for our final draft. So I just wanted to point that out.
That's in your mind. Is that acceptable by the rest of your group, the rest of your class? Is that what the class thinks is normal? Because the ultimate goal, you need to communicate outside of just your mind so that everybody around you understands and appreciates your message. If you have 2 different PPTs and then a completely different file talking about a grant, is that okay for Suksana? Is that okay for Hesulhan? Is that okay for Ms. Hong? Anybody want to comment? What are some suggestions?
Professor, can I say something?
Yes.
That I think that like this group is just mentioned about the methodology part, and isn't it the update for the interview from the Boninam and the survey of the KC students that how they think about? So I think that references are 4 articles are good for this update for this methodology part, and I think that's good. I think that's good. In the final, that I think that group will add more articles that they use at the research paper and the final project. But at this part, the 4 references will be helpful, and I think it's good.
Good. Okay, that's a fair point. Anybody else want to comment? Hazelhan, Minji Kim, Fonita, Sungak Lee, anybody, everybody in class. What are some other comments? Let me give you a hint. How many points can you get if you only do 1 section of your paper versus how many points could you get if you present everything today? If you're doing just the intro or just the method section,
I believe presenting a part of a paper is worth 5 points.
Correct. And presenting the total package is worth how many?
If my memory is correct, is it
15 points for the presentation. If you show the paper, that paper is worth an additional 35 points. Altogether, there's 50 points any one of you could get today. But if you only show 1 small piece of it, the maximum you can get is 5. So you could go for 50 points, or if it's just the PPT introducing these, then that could be 15 points. Or if you only do a small part, that's 5 points. But it's your choice. Me, I see the bigger points.
Today we'll just get 5 points for sharing our methodology part, and we actually scheduled on December 4th to give our final project, including the video, a grant application, paper, and the PPT. So I guess we'll add all those points up on that day.
Okay. Seung-Ju Lee, I'd like to have you give the class, what is the mark that you gave them, and what are 3 comments? Everyone should give a mark and 3 comments. So Seung-Ju Lee, let's hear from you first.
Today is just about the methodology part. So I think because I haven't heard enough details about each content, I don't have any comments about the details, but in the reference part, I think it might be better if you write in alphabet order, like the C or country comparison and tongue must be in the first part rather than P and the S. And that's just the only comments that I have right now.
Okay, it is a good start. So I'd like to make a short comment. So the idea is that you should not consider yourself as only communicating with a teacher. So just consider yourself like you are in a big team, in a group, okay? Everybody is doing something, but at the same time, it's evaluating himself. That means this is why Professor Watts is asking you to put your marks. And on the other side, the others are evaluating all the others. The point is that by being careful about the others, you learn about yourself. So you should be able to improve your work ongoing, okay? So we are asking you to present your progress. We are asking your colleagues to evaluate the progress, and at the same time, they understand about maybe what should they do to improve their work as well. So just consider yourself like a big team, like a group work. Okay, so we exchange information and we evaluate each other and we improve ourselves at the same time. So this is the difference. It's not pointing only to Professor Watts, your information. Okay, thank you very much. And about grading yourself. In life, it is important to be able to evaluate yourself as well. And I understand that this is hard to accept as a student because you are used for many years just to be given grades. But just think a little bit from the other side. Evaluate yourself, okay? And keep track of this. Later, when you will be in the job, you will be given assignments, okay? And so people are interested in having your work done, but they are not that much interested in counting how much you did. And many times you have to be aware and you have to be able to fight for your rights. You have to value your work, yes, and you have to be able to negotiate for your value that you brought to the company. So this is a kind of an exercise. Put marks on yourself. Thank you.
Some people might be forgetting what we're actually teaching today. Again, this topic today is talking about negotiation. And so some people presented a topic that's not that much of a negotiation. But if you understand that we're battling for grades and points, then you are going to be negotiating. So everybody needs to deal with negotiation. We've started to talk about negotiation a little bit in the past. I want to see how you guys are able to make offers, make statements, make negotiations. So I'm going to be going through everybody in the class. I want to go through this quickly and have an interaction between Ms. Ha, Chiang Ha, and Icharin. You guys need to start negotiating now your marks and details. So
Okay.
we're back to Seung-Ak Lee and Eugene Jung. How about you guys, or Lee Soo-hyun? There's several people that we started to talk to about these details.
Okay, so the point is not only teaching about how to negotiate. It is an exercise that you are actually performing right now. Okay, so you are actually asked to negotiate, asked to evaluate yourself, asked to build a relationship and with your big team. Okay, so it's not only a class to send you some information from a paper. Okay, this is also an exercise for yourself. So you are in an exercise of negotiating about your work, about your results. Thank you.
Xiang, your mic is off.
Yeah, so today Chaylin and I present the advances in our research project, which is the part of our final project, so that I think we can get 5 points for that. So is it okay just put 5 points on our blank?
So what you're saying is your methodology section is perfect. 5 out of 5 means perfect. And let's talk about the methodology. What is your research methodology classification? Can you remind the students what that is?
So we use case studies and interview for our research methodology.
And to give a general definition of methodology, it is a part in the paper where you actually describe what kind of methods you used for your research.
Okay, is there anybody that knows about these details? Hey, Sohan, how are you going to be doing your methodology? Is it the same way?
We are not much updated than before, but we are updating our paper continually.
Okay, my question was, is your methodology a case study and interview? Is that the only thing that you're saying? Do you think that's perfect? Or do you think that there might be some other ways to upgrade?
I think we should be upgrade, but we think we might have other ways that can be improved. But we are focused on our about case studies that we present until these days.
Okay, so the only people that are interested in presenting today are finished presenting. If anybody else is interested in presenting, let us know. If they have finished, and if there's nobody else, the rest of the class, we are focused on negotiation. So I will be clear, I'm repeating, our negotiation now is grades and comments to improve. So far, we've had only one person say it has been absolute perfect methodology for research, and they should get 100%, 5 out of 5. I demand other people participate in the negotiation. Have fun. There's no right or wrong, but you need to learn how to negotiate. If you don't say anything, you fail negotiation. The other person is going to walk all over you. You're going to have a very difficult time in life. You need to learn how to speak up, how to negotiate, and how to contribute. And so I'll just tell you, this is a very low level of research methodology, and quite a bit is missing. And so there is a lot of places that you could argue there are ways to improve. So everybody else in class, you should be able to contribute.
Wait, so what we're doing right now is negotiating the points that we are getting for today as a class.
Yes.
So receiving comments regarding if we can get perfect points, like 5 out of 5. That's
yes.
What we're doing,
If we
right?
do that, then you get your points, Ms. Ha gets her points, and anybody else in class that talks can get half a point or 1 point or 2 points just for talking. So
Okay.
I'm giving you the opportunity. If you talk, you get points in class. If you don't talk, I'm going to teach what is negotiation, and I'm going to teach research methodology that I think you guys don't really care about too much. So I'm going to give you maybe 5 or 10 more seconds, and then I'm going to start taking over the negotiations because you're being too quiet. You're not participating in the negotiation. You must try to negotiate in order to survive in life.
So I guess we need to have mutual benefit through this, classmates.
So for Lee-Chan-in and Seung-ha, I'm going to help you again. I think nobody else in class understands what you said. And I think because they don't understand anything you said, that's why they're quiet. And I think maybe they don't understand about research methodology, which could be true. But even if it's not, look at Donald Trump. Many times he doesn't know what he's talking about, but he still wins arguments. There are ways to negotiate without knowing all of the facts. You presented something, whether it's good or bad, it's just one side of a negotiation. If you have no comment from the other side, that's not a negotiation. You are a dictator. Lee-Chan-in and Seung-ha, I don't want you guys to be classified as dictators. show participative management, show that it actually is understood what you're negotiating, and get some comment.
Okay, so it's actually kind of our fault that we just went through the presentation by just kind of declaring what we're going to do instead of getting participation from the classmates. So I guess we need to go on with the negotiation that Dr. Ross is currently talking about. So does anyone have any comments regarding the points that we're getting today? So do you think we deserve to get 5 out of 5? Or do you think we have to like improve on something? So maybe 4 out of 5? Can anyone just give us the comments? And you, if you talk, then you can get comment points too. So
Yes.
yeah.
I'm
Just
waiting to-
anyone.
I have
anyone.
a comment, Professor.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I think they are prepared quite good for their final paper, and I appreciate that they have the interview with the Samsung executive. But even he really like successful executive in Samsung, but his idea is like the one-side opinion. So I think it must be better if we have like 2 or 3 interview more to like get like the different perspective from different executive. Yes, I think it's maybe better. But I still like they deserve like 5 points for today, I think.
Miss Wong, you're so generous. So you're agreeing with it. Let me get, I'm going to start taking over soon if nobody else is ready.
Professor,
Yes.
If no, there nobody want to give recommend, can I share my like first paper of my final research?
Yes, you can. Let me go through and remind the class a little bit more about what is kind of expected here. So
yes.
I'm going to share my screen here, and what we see here, we understand that everyone needs to have all of these parts in your paper, or you show that you are replicating the same style and format of some other published paper. This is the standard paper format in all social sciences. And so today we understand that you are doing your method section. So if this is the methodology section, the group presenting, they need to say what their problem was and how did they try to solve it. So method is describing a problem and how they tried to solve it. What was the method to solve their problem? And so you are supposed to state, for example, your specific research methodology, and state, for example, who were the typical people that you interviewed, why you interviewed these people, if you were interviewing, how exactly you interviewed these people, what were examples of questions you asked in interview, what were examples of the replies, and then you need to go into this whole description of, are you doing it properly? There's 2 main types of research: qualitative research or quantitative research. If it's not either of those, you're probably making a lot of biases, and that's not research. That's just an opinion. And so what we heard today was it's a case study, right? There is no research method which is called just interviewing. Interviewing is one type of doing any of these. So inside the case study, you study the phenomenon, which is a case in the real world context. So what was the case that was studied today? Anybody know? If anybody knows and says it, you can help get yourself points. That's negotiating for you, and you get advantage. If we have to wait for Xiang Ha and Yi Charin to actually say what their case was, then they're just allowing them just to get the 5 points, and you guys don't get it. Ms. Ha, what was your case? Can you maybe talk about that?
So differences in Korean and Swedish millennials.
Difference between Korean and Spanish millennials, what?
Characteristics. So
Characteristics. So far, you're being fairly specific, but I think you need maybe 5 more words to actually show your research project. Are you seriously just looking about Spanish millennials, how they like to drink tequila, and Korean millennials like to drink soju? Or are you focused on compensation and what they're looking at for job satisfaction?
So focusing on compensation. So because Korean and Sweden have different culture, their priorities are different.
It's a good start. Thank you for everybody. Everybody listening, it would be best if you can actually start talking about this, because we're at an introductory level talking about these details, but the words that we're using are still general. So the negotiation is not going too far. For example, did you work in Samsung for a long time? Did you live in Samsung? Did you observe Samsung for a long time? You're not just talking about any millennial in Korea and any millennial in Sweden. You're talking about millennials in Korea, specifically working where?
I found that the 2 Scopus articles describe general Korean millennials and Swedish millennials.
Okay, good. Talk about the research of other people. So usually when you go through, I don't want to talk too much about research methodology. I want to talk more about negotiation. So if we show you a little bit more detail. So first of all, I'm just going to define. There's action research, which emphasizes you're going to change something. If you want to change how millennials are compensated, that could be classified as action research. If you're just observing a specific phenomenon, yes, that's case. But what you're probably doing is you're going out and talking to people. By talking to Bonnie Nam, that's not just a case. You're not just observing it. You're actually interacting with it. So if you are involved in field research, talking to Bonnie long enough to see what's normal on a daily basis, that could be ethnography. If you do it longer, like if you observe what millennials in Korea do and what Samsung is known for, if it's a little bit longer because we are living beside Samsung all the time, that could be classified as ethnomethodology. Or quite simply, participant observer is conducting the field-based research based on the researcher going out and actually contacting people by phone or by Zoom, whatever. And so I believe you guys did a combination of case study, participant observer, and ethnography. And all of that needs to be classified as qualitative research. Every one of those are qualitative research details. If you're getting into the alternative, which is quantitative, that's getting into a lot of statistical analysis of data points. Do you have a lot of data points? Did you ask many specific details to Bonnie, or was it just an in-depth, deep research questionnaire with one person? So the in-depth research with one person, again, that's more of a qualitative detail. And I didn't hear you talk about the qualitative research studies. So those type of things could help your presentation. I'm not going to talk too much about that unless you guys have questions. What I want to show you is a different slide. So you should be able to see, yes, on my slide now. With the negotiation details, overall, over time, you can see that a long time ago, people didn't like to negotiate. Like people in our class, you are avoiding negotiation. Maybe you think arguing is negotiation and you don't want to argue. That is the old-fashioned view. Many years ago, 50 years ago. And then in the 1970s and 1990s, they started to believe that there was some good in negotiation. By focusing on what is good with negotiation, you can see that it gets more energy in the conversation. If you don't say anything, there's no energy, the class gets boring, there's not a lot of benefit for it. That's the old-fashioned style. By arguing anything, saying that pink hippopotamuses were a great part of their presentation, at least it gets people involved. It also re-examines assumptions. Is research methodology important? Is how you communicate some topic, is it important? So far, if you say nothing, you're just saying that communication is not important. They just say it their way. If they're good, if they say something, everybody loves it. But if there's no response, that means it's not actually communicating. It's just one person talking. You need to show that somebody is at least listening and responds, and then ideally, you're going to get feedback that it's understood. Let's back up a few months. At the beginning of the semester, I showed one of the most powerful organizations in this country, the Ministry of Justice. They were showing how they deal with international cross-cultural communication, helping marriages. People from Korea marrying people from other countries. And we showed that if it's only one person communicating one message, although they're trying to help people understand the world, they could make a misunderstanding. And they did make a huge misunderstanding, and it made them and the whole country kind of look bad. Why? It's because they said something, they presented something, but they didn't check the understanding. You need to check people are accepting your message, and then you need to check what did they understand about it. They need to get a back translation. So whatever they heard, get them to tell it to you back. It's usually best if you get people to give comments about what they understood so that your message is clear. If you say, my message is perfect, and everybody else just says, yeah, your method's perfect, that could mean that Icharin and Xiangha, they're just very tough, dangerous, strong women, and everybody's afraid of them. Do you go around beating people up in your free time, Miss Ha and Miss Lee? I think you're very kind people, but you have not tried to check other people understand or accept what you're saying. It would help. So it could energize your conversation. It can re-examine your message and your assumptions. It would improve responsiveness if other people actually respond. It's the other people also being very quiet. And it also increases the classwork. It increases the team cohesiveness. Let's go to the next part of this. So since we've gone past, again, this was 50 to 100 years ago, it was like this. And then in the 1970s to 1990s, it was like this. But actually the newest level in 2020, most of the world's best leaders and researchers, they're finding that negotiation is very good. Making problems is usually great. A lot of companies, the top companies, they will reward you for trying and failing. It's one of the best ways to learn. If you don't actually say what you're doing, like Icharin and Xiangha, you're showing what you're trying. And if somebody shows you, oh, maybe you failed and you could do this better, then you learn how to improve. If you don't get that comment, you only keep doing it your way all the time, and it's not getting better, right? So negotiation is good. People learn from it. That's how they become more successful. Next, there's a few other things related to this. For example, why are we being quiet right now? Why are we not negotiating this? Maybe there's sources of conflict. Is it because we have incompatible goals? Maybe some students don't want class marks. Anybody in class? Hong Min, right? And Eugene Oh, right? And Eugene Jung, right? Yi Sung Ju and Hae So Han. All of you, I think you want marks. I'm prepared to give away marks. I'm the candy man. I'm giving away candy marks. All you need to do is just start talking. Try to negotiate. Whether you have a great mark for them or a low mark for them, somebody please come up and say they deserve 0 just to start a negotiation. Use it as a joke because you know I'm going to be generous anyway. So is it because you have incompatible goals? No, everybody should be wanting the same thing. As far as differentiation, is it because your style is different? You don't like to talk? Is everybody else in class an introvert and they don't like English conversation? Maybe. How many people are chatting? Julian, have you been able to go through the chats? Or Ali, have you been able to go through the chats? I haven't had time to go through the chat.
Looking through it.
So maybe
One
if you
moment.
can't talk in class, if you're an introvert, you're afraid of public communication, writing could be okay. You can write in the chat session. I just don't have time to read it. You can also write in the Facebook group. But during class, I don't have time to check that either, unless you point it out. It's your responsibility to point out, please check that chat. So that's that idea. And that would get to the next level of interdependence. The only way to learn cross-cultural communication is to communicate. If one person just says something, it's not really communicating. You could be a dictator and the other person maybe doesn't understand anything you don't know. So you need to check they understand your message. After they understood or they even heard, maybe they have wax in their ears, then we can go to the next step if there's some sort of option for mutual gain. The idea of scarce resources. Maybe some people think, oh, I don't want to take marks away from them, or I don't want to take marks away from somebody else. If you're old-fashioned and you think there's only so many marks we can get, there's only that one circle, that one pie, and I want my piece of the pie, but if I take a piece, then this other person can't get it. Well, that's not the way the world works. There's always ways you can grow the pie and think of other things. You should be creative in negotiation. And so the idea of ambiguous rules. I started the class. I told people you could start presenting. I waited 10 seconds to see if the rest of the class had any questions about how to evaluate. Nobody did. So I went in and I clarified everyone in class has to give a grade and has to give 3 comments. So I tried to make sure that was unambiguous. It was very clear, everybody understood. So the next level is poor communication. Is there poor communication? Well, if it's just one-sided, yes, it's poor. I want to give everybody in class today some points. Minche Kim, would you like points? Vanita, would you like points? Isamak, would you like points? Need to say something. One of the other things that we talk about, the very important things, is the idea for BATNA. This is the Harvard project. Do you guys remember any of the details about the Harvard project? Are you guys aware of this Harvard project? Any comments from class about this?
I actually read this book.
Great.
Yeah, it was a textbook for another class that I took before.
Great. Anybody else? Nobody actually went through. This is in the CTL. Our PPT for this week is this. This is our PPT for this week. And so the first thing we're talking about is BATNA. Don't just think one person communicates and that is negotiation. That's not negotiation. There has to be at least 2 people. So when they're negotiating, the old-fashioned style is he wants to give something and you hope this person wants to take it. You hope they meet in the middle and they agree. I will give you this if you give me this. That is part of negotiation, but that's the old-fashioned style. Many people thought if you're arguing, it's going to be a problem. But the new style is, it's not one thing versus one thing. The new style should be, you understand there's many things they can give and many things you can give. And so you should be trying to find what are some areas of mutual gain. What is the overlap? Maybe these things up here we can't copy But these things we can work with. So it's not just one person saying something and they get marks. Hongmin, you can get marks. Eugeno, you can get marks. Everybody in class, you can get marks. So there's many ways to do it. Many people haven't read this book. So by discussing this or showing that you went through the class PPT, you could get marks. Even asking questions would get marks for this. So as it says here, make sure you see this bigger picture and make sure you understand that you should be trying to make mutually profitable deals. Anybody talking helps the whole class right now. I can go on to the next section. So this is called BATNA. It stands for the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. How about Fanita or Suksana or Hazelhan? Sorry, I caught you with a mouthful. So Hazelhan, I'll skip you. Oh, you're finished. Good. Can you understand what does best alternative to a negotiated agreement or BATNA? Do you understand what that means? I said something, but maybe it's not clear. I'm checking now you understand my message. You can tell me, anyone in class, Professor Watts, you're really confusing. I don't understand anything about you. That would be good. Maybe you get 0.5 marks. Hey, Sohan, do you understand what is BATNA?
Maybe I think I understand it.
Great. Can you try to explain to the class?
First of all, BATNA is, as mentioned at here, it is best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So I think it means when we proceed negotiation, we should see the whole things about the negotiation and prepare alternative.
Okay, so Sung-Ju Lee, do you understand what Ms. Han just said? Can you help me understand what is BATNA? I'm waiting for Sung-Ju Lee to comment. Somebody try to rescue your classmate. He's crashing and burning by not saying anything.
So BATNA is, so when you're negotiating with someone, there are a lot of alternatives that you can get for the final result. And BATNA is standing for the best alternative that gives mutual benefit to each other.
Right.
So
the
that would
old-
be
Perfect.
that would be the ideal result.
Right. So originally, people, this guy wants only this one thing, and they're expecting just this one thing. There's no alternative, just the one thing. I'm going to sell this machine. He has this money. We change. But that is bad negotiation. Good negotiation is where you understand, yes, you have the machine, but you also have many other things. You also have people that can train the machine or other details. You're teaching about cultural communication with Korean millennials versus Sweden millennials, great. But maybe you're talking about compensation of them, or what Samsung is looking for any student in class to get an internship, or the idea of getting points in class. There's many things you can talk about. Same thing with this other group. So it's not just the one thing, there's many alternatives. Great, so that's understood. Next, the idea of make sure you separate people from the problem. We are not focused just on Icharin and her personality or her style of communication, which is great. We are trying to understand the idea of marks and how to improve. Nobody is God in this group. Everybody could always improve, especially me. I can improve a lot. So I would like you to tell me, how could I improve? How could I improve the communication? How could Miss Lee improve her communication? How can Miss Ha improve her communication? So that the next time she does, she is more successful at it. She will have an easier time at life. If you say nothing, and I can tell you now that there were some misunderstandings with research methodology, then she's just going to continue doing those things. So don't worry about if somebody's going to cry or the person aspect of it. Focus, this says, on what is the issue. how to develop and how to get points. This next idea is understanding that there's two separate kinds of interest. Usually there's a substantive interest and there's an interpersonal relationship. If you're focused on just making other people happy, that's not focused on developing something. So we have to focus on what is it we're working at. And then we understand in negotiation, there's several problems. First of all, I am defining what Harvard says. Harvard says negotiation has several problems. Sometimes perception can ruin the negotiation, or emotion could be bad for negotiation, or straight communication could be bad for negotiation. And so maybe I haven't talked about it too much in class before, but let's imagine that there's two people walking down the street. We only have a little bit of time left. If there's two people walking down the street and Hong Min looks at them, they're both perfectly happy, they're both nice, regular people, and Sung Joo Lee, he looks at them, he agrees, they're both nice, happy people walking down the street. Maybe it's husband and wife, maybe it's boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. They're normal, they're happy, but then all of a sudden, one of them starts to cry. What's going to happen next? Person A and person B are walking down the street. Number B starts to cry. What will person A do? What will person B do? You know, take a guess. Talk to me about pink elephants and unicorns if you want, but the question is, two people are together happy, and then all of a sudden one starts crying, and they just keep crying. They don't say anything. They just keep crying. You can ask a bunch of questions, but they just keep crying. What is going to happen with those two people?
The people who cry will keep crying, and the other person will feel like we're wondering about why he or she is crying. And I personally that I think that I don't feel really good and just like confusing why she cried, and I like even though he or she does not speaking, so it is hard to communicate that what happened.
Great. Can you guess what would you do? Hey Solhan, what would you do? Eugene Jung, what would you do? Suksana, Miss Hong, what do you think the other person would do? Would they go like this? Yeah, shut up. That's possible, right? Or what else is more possible? Come on, you guys have never taken care of somebody crying and sad? Don't you guys have hearts? Speak up, anybody, each head in. Everybody press.
You would probably try to comfort that person, and the communication won't really work because that person is emotional, in an emotional situation. So you would try to comfort that person first, and then go on with some communication.
Good. First, you do that first, and then how? What's number two? What would you do next? What would you do number three? That's what I want to get into. I want to get into details, not generalizations.
I don't think I quite understood.
You just said yourself, one person's crying, the first person, at first they would try to just come, oh, don't cry. But if they keep crying, what would you do next? You said first, oh, don't cry, comfort. What's the next step?
So even though I comfort that person, he or she still cries?
They're still crying.
Then I'm not sure. I would walk away.
Say, you suck. Maybe, oh, come on.
Maybe that person needs some time alone.
That's definitely not good negotiation. That's definitely not good communication. How can you communicate? I don't want anybody in class to cry. Every one of you, let's say there's one student that's not here today, and that student in our class is crying. What could you do? I could say, I'll give you marks if you stop, or what? I could give you flowers. I can give you a chocolate bar. I can give you some treat. I can give you a present. Maybe you're cold. I could give you my jacket, right? That is human nature. So I'm talking about negotiation. Harvard says emotions are bad for negotiation. I'm telling you, everybody on the planet knows otherwise. Everybody has that heart and that ability, the instinct. If somebody is crying, usually other people will help them. So if you pretend to cry in a negotiation, that other person might be kinder to you. Maybe they will give you a discount or give you that product you don't have to pay for. Maybe they will give you flowers or a chocolate bar. So that aspect of emotions, I'm not saying it's good, I'm not saying it's bad. What I'm saying is that it can impact negotiations. There's other things that can also impact negotiations, like time. How much time do you have? Since we are running out of time, if you really want to get points, you need to speak up, because as soon as I click off, then you don't get the points anymore. You could try next class, but no matter what, you can still try next class. So having a deadline usually helps negotiation. By negotiating in advance, that's nicer for the relationship. They will give you usually a better relationship. If you have a better relationship, usually it's better negotiation outcome. Or if you try negotiating right up until that last minute, you know they have to leave soon. They'll probably say, fine, I'll give it to you. I'll give you the discount just to make the deal. You could get a lot of advantage. So time also helps. The location of where you negotiate also helps. There's many things that go into that. So next week, please go through these details so we can talk about them in class. I'm going to show these things. There's also other things here too. So one of the files that is in the CTL, it's a whole book chapter, and it's not just a book chapter about negotiating, because the Harvard project is just negotiating with the American culture, with the Western culture. There are problems. Next time, next class, if students aren't presenting all of their projects, if we have free time, I want you to tell me, how can culture impact the negotiation?